story. Like the haunting of Emily's house. Emily had always been excited about her birthday sleepovers. This year, she invited her closest friends, Sarah, Lily, and Maya, to celebrate her 13th birthday. The night started with laughter, games, and movie marathon. Emily's parents had set up the living room with sleeping bags and snacks, making it the perfect setting for a memorable night. Little did they know the night would become unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. Here's the clock struck midnight. The girls decided to play a game of truth or dare. Sarah, always the daring one, chose a dare. Emily dared her to go down to the basement and bring back a box of old toys that had been stored there for years. The basement was known to be creepy with its dim lighting and cobwebs, but Sarah accepted the challenge. With a flashlight in hand, Sarah descended the creaky stairs into the basement. The girls waited in anticipation, whispering and giggling. Minutes passed, and Sarah had not returned. Concerned, Emily decided to check on her. As she slowly made her way down the stairs, calling out Sarah's name, the basement was eerily silent. As Emily reached the bottom, she saw Sarah standing in front of an old, dusty mirror, staring at a reflection. Emily called out to her, but Sarah didn't respond. She seemed entranced, her eyes wide and unblinking. Emily approached her friend and touched her shoulder. Sarah snapped out of her trance and turned to Emily, her face pale and her hands trembling. "What happened?" Emily asked, her voice shaky. Sarah pointed to the mirror. "I saw someone standing behind me." Emily looked into the mirror but saw nothing unusual. She convinced Sarah to go back upstairs, but the mood of the night had changed. The girls decided to go to bed, hoping sleep would erase the unsettling experience. Around 3 a.m. Emily was awakened by a faint sound. She sat up and listened. It was a whisper, soft and indistinct, coming from the direction of the basement door. Emily's heart raced as she heard footsteps slowly climbing the basement stairs. She shook her friends awake, and they all huddled together, fear gripping them. The footsteps stopped at the top of the stairs, followed by a chilling silence. Then the basement door creaked open, and a cold breeze swept through the room. The girls stared at the door, too scared to move. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared in the doorway. It was a tall, dark silhouette, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The figure moved closer, and the girls screamed, bolting out of their sleeping bags and running to Emily's parents' room. They banged on the door, waking her parents, who rushed out to see what was happening. When they returned to the living room, the shadowy figure was gone, but the basement door was wide open. Emily's parents reassured the girls, saying it was just their imagination, but Emily knew what they had seen was real. The next morning, Sarah revealed that the house had a dark history. Years ago, a man had died in the basement under mysterious circumstances. Since then, strange occurrences had been reported, but Emily's family never believed the stories. The girls never spoke of that night again, but the memory of the shadowy figure haunted them. Emily's sleepovers were never the same, and she always made sure the basement door was securely locked. Story 2. The UEJ board incident. Sienna had always been fascinated by the paranormal. So when her friends Katie, Laura, and Emma came over for a sleepover, she suggested they play with Ouija board. The idea thrilled and scared them at the same time, but curiosity got the better of them. They set up the board in Jenna's attic, a place known for its creepy ambiance and old, dusty furniture. The girls gathered around the board, placing their fingers lightly on the planchette. Jenna started by asking simple questions, but there was no response. Frustrated, she asked, "Is there anyone here who wants to talk to us?" The planchette moved slowly to yes. The girls gasped and looked at each other, unsure if one of them was moving it. Jenna asked for a name, and the planchette spelled out Henry. They asked Henry how he had died, and the planchette spelled out fire. Katie, feeling uneasy, wanted to stop, but Jenna insisted on continuing. She asked Henry if he was alone, and the planchette moved to no. The room grew colder, and the candle they had lit flickered violently. Laura, scared, asked who else was with Henry, and the planchette spelled out evil. Panic set in as the atmosphere in the attic changed. The air felt heavy, and the shadows seemed to move on their own. Emma screamed as she felt a cold hand grip her shoulder. They all decided to end the session, but the planchette wouldn't move to goodbye. Instead, it kept circling the board. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut, and the candle blew out. The girls were plunged into darkness. They scrambled to find their flashlights, and when they turned them on, they saw a shadowy figure standing in the corner of the room, and it had glowing red eyes and a sinister grin. Threw into the door. But it wouldn't budge. The figure moved closer, and they could hear it whispering their names. Jenna, thinking quickly, grabbed the Ouija board and tried to break it, but it seemed indestructible. In a desperate attempt, she yelled, "Leave us alone!" The figure stopped and then vanished, leaving the girls shaken and terrified. The door suddenly opened, and they ran downstairs to Jenna's parents, who were watching TV. They told them what had happened, but her parents didn't believe them, thinking it was just their overactive imaginations. The girls spent the rest of the night in the living room, too scared to sleep. The next day, they researched the house's history and discovered that a man named Henry had died in a fire many years ago. He was rumored to have been involved in dark rituals, and his spirit was said to haunt the attic. Jenna threw the Ouija board away, vowing never to mess with the paranormal again. The experience left a lasting impression on all of them, and they avoided talking about it. The attic remained off limits, and Jenna's fascination with the paranormal turned into fear. The entity in the cabin, Sophie and her friends, Megan, Rachel, and Lily, decided to spend a weekend at Sophie's family cabin in the woods. The cabin was cozy and rustic, a perfect getaway from the hustle and bustle of city life. They planned to relax, roast marshmallows, and tell ghost stories around the fireplace. Little did they know, one of those ghost stories would come to life. On the first night, after a day of hiking and exploring, the girls settled in front of the fireplace with hot cocoa. Rachel suggested they share scary stories, and Sophie, always the storyteller, eagerly agreed. First, she began with a tale about a spirit that haunted the very woods they were staying in. She described the ghost. A chill ran through the room. The girls laughed nervously, but the tension was palpable. Megan, trying to lighten the mood, suggested they go outside to see the stars. They grabbed their jackets and stepped out into the crisp night air. The forest was eerily silent, and the sky was clear, the stars twinkling brightly. After a while, they decided to head back inside. As they approached the cabin, they noticed something strange. The front door was ajar. Sophie was certain she had locked it before they left. They cautiously entered the cabin, finding everything as they had left it, except for one thing. The fireplace, which they had left burning, was now out, and the room was freezing. They quickly rekindled the fire and huddled together, feeling an unsettling presence. Suddenly, the lights flickered and a loud bang echoed through the cabin. The girls screamed and ran to the kitchen, where they found the back door wide open. Panic set in as they realized they were not alone. Rachel grabbed a knife, and Sophie called her parents, who were hours away. They told them to stay calm and lock all the doors and windows. The girls did as they were told, but the sense of dread only grew. They heard footsteps on the roof and scratching at the windows. Megan suggested they all sleep in the living room together. As they tried to fall asleep, the temperature dropped even more, and the fire seemed to dim on its own. Sophie whispered that they should tell the entity to leave. They held hands and in unison said, "Leave us alone." The room grew silent, and the footsteps stopped. Thinking it was over, they tried to relax, but then the door to the basement creaked open. A shadowy figure emerged, and the girls froze in terror. It moved slowly towards them, its eyes glowing a sinister, and they screamed and huddled together, praying for it to go away. Just as it seemed the figure would reach them, a bright light filled the room, and the figure vanished. Sophie's parents had arrived, shining flashlights into the cabin. They rushed to the girls, who were in tears, and assured them they were safe. The next day, Sophie's parents decided it was best to leave the cabin. They later learned that the land the cabin was built on was rumored to be cursed. A long time ago, a man who practiced dark magic had lived there, and his spirit was said to haunt the area. The girls never returned to the cabin, and their friendship was forever bonded by the terrifying experience. They often wondered what would have happened if Sophie's parents hadn't arrived in time, but they were grateful to have survived the night with the entity in the cabin.